Hello, I'm Matthew Smith, and this is my process speech. Hello, I'm Matthew Smith, and I go to Ivy Tech Community College. This is my process speech. I am a freshman at Ivy Tech. I take online classes out of the Richmond campus. I'm going to do my process speech today on salvation, or obtaining salvation, being born again. And I want to ask you a question today. How is your life? How's everything going with your life? Happy, sad, everything going right for you, everything going wrong for you? There's so many different types of emotions that we face in our lives. And facing these different types of emotions and going through these different types of emotions, there is a benefit that we can all reap regardless of where we're at and what walk of life we're in. We can reap this benefit, and that benefit is obtaining salvation or being born again. Back in the history of salvation, obtaining salvation, in the Old Testament days of the Bible, they used to take a ram or a lamb that was pure, spotless. It had to be the very best lamb that they had available. And if they had committed sin, or if they had done something that was against God's will or displeasing to God, they would take that ram or that lamb and bring it to the priest. The priest would hold that lamb, put his hand on the head of that lamb, and they would slaughter that ram. That ram was sacrificed or killed, if you will, in place of what that person had done, the sin that they had committed. And that was many, many years ago. Jesus Christ, who was the Son of God, had not yet came yet. And so many years ago, that was the penalty for sin, was a sacrifice of an animal. Will continue to be that way until Jesus came to this earth. To be born of a virgin, born of Mary, while we celebrate Christmas. He was born, lived a normal lifestyle. There was many attempts at a young age on his life for him to be killed. Even at that young age, as a baby, there was an attempt made on his life to take his life. And throughout life, he just grew up as a normal baby. But he began his ministry at about 30 years old. Took this ministry and did some great things for God. He performed miracles, healed people that were blind, rose people from the dead. And it was the power that he had with God. He was the Son of God. And so he had a great ministry, but there in his ministry, there was people that did get jealous. They got bitter at him. And they did try to make many attempts to take his life. And one of those attempts, unfortunately, was successful. But it was also fortunate for us as individuals. It was all supposed to be that way. It was all meant to be that way, if you will. He was killed on a cross, crucified on a cross. He was beaten very bad, beyond ways that we can really imagine. He was put on a cross, and his hands and his feet were nailed to that cross. And he died on that cross. Suffered there on that cross for a long time until finally his breath left him, and he died. But what we see 2 or 3 days later, they put guards in place there in front of that cross to guard that. And that was to no avail. He rose from the dead. And the reason he rose from the dead is because he said he was going to. He was one that was without sin. A sin is a transgression of God's law, is what we understand. It's something that we do that we shouldn't do. It's displeasing to God. And so obtaining salvation is a very simple thing. It's a very easy thing. But he rose from the dead to have power over death, hell, and the grave. And when he had power over that, then you and I could come to him and be born again. So the process, very quickly, the process is a 3-step process in being born again. Knowing what Jesus went through, knowing the history of what he went through, we can be born again. Number one process is confessing. We've all got to admit that we've done wrong. We all understand that nobody's perfect. Everybody's messed up. Everybody's made mistakes at some point or another in their lives. Confession is the number one thing that we must do. Number 2 is ask for forgiveness. If we've done somebody wrong, we go to that person, we admit that we've done them wrong, and then we ask for forgiveness. Very simple thing. Sometimes it's hard under certain situations, but we can do it. We can do it. Let me encourage you that we can do it. Third thing and final thing that we must do is believe. After we've confessed, after we've asked for forgiveness, we must believe that he has forgiven us. If I go to a brother of mine or I go to a family member of mine, I confess to them that I've done them wrong. I ask them for forgiveness. then I'm going to believe by their emotion, by their response, I'm going to believe if they've forgiven me or not. And that's the way it is, that we can understand that we have this opportunity, that if we've confessed, if we've asked for forgiveness, and if we've believed it in our heart, then we can obtain that thing called salvation. Benefits now: peace, joy, love. There's many, many benefits. More benefits than what we can talk about right now. It would take too long to explain and go into in depth all the benefits that are offered in having salvation and having Jesus Christ living in your heart. But not only the benefits now, but the benefits later. There's a promise of a place called heaven after we leave this world, after we die our physical death. That soul that is within us will take place and take residence in heaven someday. And we've got the promise of heaven. So it's benefits now and it's benefits later. But we must ask ourselves, are we willing to take that step? Are we willing to make that decision? Are we willing to make that choice? Salvation is a very easy process. Salvation is a very simple process. But I ask you, as I've given it to you, the simplicity of those 3 steps, what will you do with that process? Thank you.